Bava Metzia, the Gemara briefly concludes its discussion about what is the purpose of the Shvua, the swearing which took place in the case of our Mishnah. The Gemara is bothered by Migud Shvuasa. If we're suspecting him of stealing, then there should be no value to his swearing either. The Gemara is going to have two approaches to explain that, and then the Gemara will get into the sugya of what happens when somebody grabs property from someone else. Does that give him any legal rights? This will take us to the famous Shas sugya of Takva Koyin. So let's begin. The Gemara has asked, what is the purpose of swearing in the case where two people are holding an object and each one is claiming that they found it first, or that they bought the object and then therefore it's fully theirs? The Gemara had said that each one gets half, but he has to swear. What's the purpose of the shvua? So my first word of Yochanan, who said, because we want to discourage people from grabbing from others and trying to claim that it's theirs based on that and figuring that they'll get at least half. So the Gemara asked, but if he's suspected of stealing, he should certainly be suspected of swearing falsely, and swearing therefore has no effect. The Gemara said, how do you know that just because someone is willing to steal means he's willing to swear falsely? And the Gemara wants to bring three proofs that we don't say that, and therefore the shvua makes sense. Just because we suspect someone of stealing doesn't mean he'll swear falsely, and making him swear is an effective deterrent. The Gemara first brings, Rav Nachman says, shvuas heses, that if somebody denies a complete claim against him, he still has to swear midir rabbanon. He's not admitting to anything, so he's just fully denying everything, and the only reason you're making him swear is on the side that he's lying, and therefore he's a full thief. He's not cowed in any sense to feel like he needs to admit to anything, and therefore what is the purpose of making him swear to that? The Gemara second brings a brayse of Reb Chia that says the case of Chanami al Pinkasai, where Reuven said to Shimon, give money to Levi and I'll pay you back. Shimon says he gave it, Levi says he never received it, and now both Shimon and Levi are claiming the money from Reuven. Both of them can swear and take. They collect. So there, one of them is certainly lying and stealing. So how come we believe him if he swears? And the third case is that if Shuas a Shemer, where Sheshis had said that you make a Shemer swear three things: that he was not posheh, was not negligent with the treatment of the object that he's supposed to be guarding, that he didn't use it for his own purposes, and that it is not still in his rishos, that he's hiding it. Now those last two, he's a thief if he does that. So what is the point of making him swear? Obviously, you see from all of these three things that just because someone is suspected of lying and stealing doesn't mean that he's going to swear falsely, and swearing is an effective deterrent. And therefore, that's a pshat in the Shua and our Mishnah. The Gemara brings Abai says a different pshat in the swearing in the Mishnah. He says we're afraid that perhaps what happened is that one of them is owed money by the other one, and it's an old loan. He knows that if he claims it, he's not going to win. The other will deny it. He doesn't even remember it, and he figures he'll collect by grabbing that person's object, and then he'll at least be awarded half, and in that way he will receive the money that he's rightfully owed. And that's why he's willing to do that, and it doesn't mean that he's a thief. He doesn't intend to thief. He doesn't have the brazenness of a thief. And if you make him swear, then he will not swear falsely. Now, the Gemara asks, if this is the only thing that you were concerned about, this is the only purpose of the shua is to eliminate this possibility. This possibility means that he rightfully gets the money. So you should let him take it. You should let him take the half. Why are you making him swear and not giving it to him in the first place? At least the half that he's awarded, then you should just give it to him straight. So therefore the Gemara modifies this a bit. Rav Sheshes says, the pshat is that we're afraid it's a suffix milveh. He has a suffix, maybe the other person owes him money, and therefore he wants to create this situation where he claims the money from him. But since he doesn't really know, and does not really have a right to that money, we're not going to award it, we make him swear. So and the swearing will deter him. So Gemara says, what's swearing going to determine? If he's willing to grab money that he might be owed, he should be willing to swear falsely to something which might be true. So Gemara says, no, people don't mind taking money which might belong to them, because if it turns out that it's not, they could always give it back. However, people will not swear a shvua which might be false, because once they swear it, they cannot undo that. The Gemara now introduces a shaila. What happens, Reb Zera asks, if in this case where each one is holding on to half of the talus, one of them succeeds in grabbing it away from the other? So what's the halacha now? So Gemara says, what is the other one's reaction? If he doesn't say anything, he's quiet, so he's being maida that it belongs to him. So obviously it belongs to the one who grabbed it. Now, if the other one's busy screaming, so then obviously the fact that he grabbed it means nothing, because it just means that he was stronger than the other one. It doesn't prove anything. So Mar says the situation is Our shaila is where he grabs it, and the other person is initially quiet, and then later he screams. So how do we interpret that? Do we interpret that he was maida, and then he decided to change his mind, but that maida is what counts? Or do we say that he was quiet initially because he said he figured the Rabbanan saw that he grabbed it, so he doesn't have to scream, but then he saw that the Rabbanan aren't impressed by the fact that it was just a grab, and then he figures, I better scream now. So that's the shaila. So the Gemara says, let's bring a raya. Or Nachman says, that says that in our case, it says, when do we say that you split it and each one gets half and they have to swear? That's where both of them are holding it. But if one of them is holding it, if a talis if one of them is holding it, so then he wins because he has possession of it, and the other one's trying to take it away from him, and he needs a proof. So this is Gemara, how do you understand this? If you understand it, b'pashtus, that they walked in to a court and one of them is fully holding it, then of course he wins. So what's the shayla? Is obvious. We don't need to spell it out. So it must be referring to our case where they came together, holding it together, and then one of them succeeded in grabbing it from the other, and he was quiet, and he later screamed. So the Gemara says, no, I'll tell you a different case. The Gemara's first answer is, I'll tell you a different case. They came in holding it together, and we told them to go split it, and they left, and they came back, and one of them's holding it. And he says, the other guy was mated to me, that it belongs to me. And the other one says, I wasn't mated to him. I sold it to him, or I rented it to him. And now I want it back from him. So on that, we say no. Since he's holding it, he wins. And the reason is because this person, since he sold it to him, or he rented it to him, you just accused him. A minute ago, you were accusing him of stealing it from you. Now you're going to rent it to him. All of a sudden, you trust him. That is unlikely, and therefore you don't believe that. Now, the Gemara gives, at least you should have, if you wanted to, at least you should have had witnesses to that transaction. Now, the Gemara's second answer is that we'll go with a simple explanation. They come to court, and one of them is holding it, and one of them is not. However, the other one, although he's not holding it, he's what's called misrach v'struchi. He's kind of squabbling onto it. He has a little piece, or he's grabbing at it. And the chiddush here is that even according to Sumchus, who says that we would not require a shuvah here, that we would say it's money that is in a suffix, and you split it automatically without requiring anyone to swear, here he would agree, and that's Sumchus here is the author of this brisa. Here he would agree that this is not called a suffix. The fact that the other guy is misrach suchi doesn't count to make it a suffix, and it's not going to be split, and the first one wins altogether outright. Now, Gemara asks, what if instead of grabbing it, the person's makdash it? So if grabbing it doesn't work and he doesn't get to hold on to it, so then he has no rights to it. Certainly being makdash it is not going to work. If ever grabbing works, the question is, since he has the power to grab it away, does that mean he also has the power to be makdash it? We know in order to be makdash something, you have to have possession of it. It says ish ki yakdash is basically kodesh, that we learn from there that you can only be makdash things that are like your house. It says you makdash your house. It could also be makdash anything which is like your house, and that it's in your possession, just like your house is in your possession. So here, since he has the potential to grab it, and then he would be awarded it, does that make it that it's considered to be in his possession enough to be makdash it? Or no, it's still, at the time that he was makdash it, he didn't have control over it, and therefore it's not considered like he had possession, and his hektish is invalid. So says the Gemara, that's a shayla, let's try to bring a raya. So the Gemara says it was a case of a bathhouse that two people were fighting over. Each one said that it belongs to him. One got up and was makdash it. So all the chachamim stopped using it from the chashash that hektish was chal. So Gemara says Rav Chananya, Rav Oishia, and all the other chachamim stopped using it. Rav Oishia said to Rabbah, when you travel to Rav Chizda in Kfari, ask him the shayla, can we use this or not? So he went, and on the way he stopped by Surah. And there he went to speak to Rav Hamnuna. I told him the shayla. Rav Hamnuna said, you can bring a right from a Mishnah. Mishnah says we have a suffix bachar. That's a person or a sheep, a cow, a kosher animal, or even a tameh animal, like a donkey that has a mitzvah of pidyon peter, of bachar. So you have the first born of a person, kosher animal or non-kosher animal, which has to be given to the kohen. But here you have a suffix if it's firstborn or not. Could be that the case was that the mother gave birth to something, some kind of miscarriage or some kind of nafel in advance. Before this one, we don't know if that had the halachic status of a birth to make this not the first birth, but it's a suffix. So the shayla here is, can the kohen take it, or does the Yisrael keep it? So the halacha is a Metzia Mechaber Olav Araya, the Brisa says, which means that the Pasha says that the Yisrael holds onto it, or if the Kohen comes and grabs it, now he's holding it, so now he is the Muchsik, and then the Yisrael has to prove his tzad, the Kohen can keep it. Now, the halacha over there says that it's also begizav avoid. I mean, it has the halacha of kedushas hektish as a bechor has kedushas hektish. It has the halachas of kedushas bechor, even before the kohen grabs it. Now, says the Gemara, what's the reason? The reason is because on the tzad that it belongs to the kohen must be, the reason is because on the tzad that it belongs to the kohen, it's a bechar. And then it's also because of avodah like any bechar. So you see that since the kohen could grab it, it's as if the kohen was already makdished with kedushas bechar, and therefore you see that hektish works in a situation where you could grab it, but you haven't grabbed it yet. So where it rejects is right. The Gemara says it's not a raya. Over there, it's not the kohen that's makdish it. The hektish comes on its own. Of a 50% tzad that it's kedushas bechar, and it's not that the kohen has enough possession, he has enough rights to it that his hektish could be chal on it. It's an automatic hektish, and that automatic hektish has nothing to do with who the right owner is. It's the safek bechar, and therefore it has an iser gizav avodah as a safek bechar. Now, said Rabbah in his response, to illustrate this, I'm going to tell you that the pshat when it says it doesn't mean that if the kohen grabs it, he becomes the muchsik. No, the Yisrael is the muchsik all along, and if the kohen grabs it, we'll take it away from him. And we said that if you take it away from the one who grabs it, there's no tzad that he could be makdish it. Still, it would be also begizav avodah because of safek hektish. And if a rabbi wants to learn pshat in this brisa, is that the muksik is the Yisrael, and even if the kohen grabs it, we take it away from him. So says the Gemara, we have a raya. Rav Chananya said to Rabbi, we have a raya that you're right, that if the kohen will go and grab the safek bechar, we'll take it away from him. What's the raya? Right, it's from a brisa that says that you could use a suffix pidyon peter chamor as your animal for meiser behema. What does that mean? The halacha of meiser behema is that if somebody has 10 new sheep that are born in a year, he has to take one of them. That's meiser. One out of the 10, he has to give it to the kohen. It's meiser behema. Now, what if he has a suffix pidyon peter chamor? That means he had a suffix chamor bechar. His donkey gave birth. We don't know if it is a bechar or not. So that is a suffix peter chamar. Suffix if he has to redeem it by exchanging the kedusha on a sheep, he'll do it misafik. Now he has a sheep that has suffix pidyon peter chamar. Suffix if it has that kedusha and has to be given to the kohen itself. Now let's say that sheep comes out being your meiser sheep. Now the Bryce says that's perfectly fine. You're allowed to do that. And the reason is because even a vadai pidyon peter chamar is chayiv in meiser. Now, for the Yisrael to use it as meiser will never happen because he has to give it to the kohen. But if the kohen has 10 of them, he has to take meiser from it. So a pidyon peter chamar is chayiv in meiser. Now this sheep, it's a suffix pidyon peter chamar, which means he doesn't have to give it to the kohen because the meiser mechaver al varaya. And therefore the Yisrael can keep it as suffix pidyon peter chamar. If it comes up being his meiser sheep, that's fine because it's chayiv in meiser. Therefore, he can now use it as the meiser and pater the rest of his 9 sheep as they were meisered by this one. Now, says the Gemara, if the kohen could grab it from him and keep it, that means that the kohen has a right over it. He has a zechus over it. It means it's not fully his. So then how could he use it as meiser? How could he give it to the kohen as meiser and pater his other animals? He's patering his animals with an animal that's not really his. The kohen has partial rights to it. Must be that the kohen has no right to grab it as suffix pidyon peter chamar, and therefore Takav kohen does not get to keep it. We would take it away from him, just like Rabbah wanted to claim. So the Gemara says no, this is not a raya, because I'll tell you a different reason. I'll tell you the case here is where he only had 9 other sheep. He didn't have anything else in his flock. He had 9 sheep plus this one. That means if this one is not his, if it belongs to the kohen on the tzad that it was a peter chamar and it belongs to the kohen, is not his, he doesn't have to meiser because he has to give it to the kohen. So then he has only 9 sheep. He's not chayiv in meiser at all. You're not chayiv till you have 10. On the tzad that it's his 10th sheep, it's his own, then it's not a pidyon peter chamar. Then it works to meiser it. So there's no problem either way, and that's why this works. Now, Abaye said this cheshbon, and then Abaye retracted. Abaye said, no, it's not true. The concept of manavshach, he's okay, doesn't work, because there's a halacha that a suffix meiser, an animal which is suffix chayiv in meiser behema, is pater automatically. It's only a vadai which is chayiv. And therefore, in these situations where you had a suffix, if you have 9 animals that are chayiv, or 10, all 10 would be pater because they're all a suffix. And suffix is pater completely. How do you see that? So you see it from a Mishnah that says, what happens when somebody's counting Meiser? He has who knows how many hundreds of animals, and he's passing them out of the corral one at a time. He's counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, and then the 10th one he makes Meiser. And then one of the ones that he counted jumps back into the corral. And now it's mixed up amongst the thousands, we don't know how many. The halach is all of them are now pater from Meiser, because all of them might be one of the already counted ones. An animal was already counted is pater. They have a an animal which was counted is not chayv. Therefore, all of them are suffix. A suffix is pater. It's only a vadai which is chayv and meiser, and not a suffix. Therefore, even in our situation where you had 9 plus this suffix pidyon pater chamar, it would all be pater because you don't have a vadai 10 here at all. We're just points out you would have a manavshach in the case of the one that jumped in. You would have a manavshach to pater them if you were chayiv in a suffix meiser. Because when you count them out, if you counted out animals which are never been counted, all 10, and they were chayiv in meiser, so fine, you meiser them. And if it's pater, then you would pater them anyway, even if one of them ends up being not a real viable meiser situation, because one of those 10 was this one that was counted already. The others would be a pater because of the din of minyan haroi, which is once you count an animal, then it's not chayiv anymore. Even if it never ends up being meiser, the fact that it was counted makes it already over tachas hashavet, and you're not chayiv to count it anymore. Like Rava says, the Torah says that a minyan haroi is pater because it's only a suffix, it's only a vade that's chayiv. So obviously you have to say that the Torah was only mechayiv a vadai meiser, and therefore my Manav Cheshbon couldn't work, and therefore this does prove that had the Kayin grabbed it, he would have no rights to it, and that's why there's no Petor.